The first mistake Commander Virex made was assuming the dense, blue-green planet cataloged, as Sol 3 would be boring. The second was not checking the atmospheric fauna registry before descending to the surface. The third was volunteering to accompany the human. Virex stood stiffly on the moss-covered riverbank, his thoracic joints clicking softly as he recorded soil composition with a handheld scanner. Nearby, Garrett Ames crouched behind a clump of broadleaf ferns, his boots half submerged in mud. The American was grinning, teeth bared in that unsettling human habit as he stared through a pair of binoculars at something beyond the bend. "Virex," Garrett whispered, "you gotta see this." "I am collecting data," Virex replied, not looking up. He adjusted the scanner's frequency. "Your planet's nitrogen cycle is, no, seriously. Get over here." Garrett's tone had that edge Virex had learned to interpret over the past 2 weeks: mischief, curiosity, and the reckless kind of excitement that usually preceded a mild disaster. Virex muttered a soft curse in his native tongue. "If this is another barking tree frog, I will report you to your command council." "I promise it's not a frog." Garrett waved him over. The alien trudged reluctantly through the underbrush and peered over Garrett's shoulder. Across the river, under the filtered light of the canopy, a massive creature lay sprawled near a sun-warmed patch of rock. Its shoulders rose and fell slowly. Fur like scorched bronze shimmered down its back. Claws the length of Virex's forearm flexed, even in sleep. Its face narrow, powerful, scarred, rested on its paws. "What is that?" Virex asked, voice tightening. "A grizzly bear," Garrett whispered. Virex took a step back. "It is armed with natural weapons." "Is it sedated?" "Nope, you brought me into a biome with an uncontained apex predator. She's just napping," Garrett said, as if that explained everything. "Aw, look at her, she's adorable." Virex slowly turned his head. "That is cute." "Yeah, look at those ears. Like little velvet pancakes." The bear stirred. Both men froze. The creature yawned, revealing an abyssal mouth lined with yellowed incisors. Its tongue lolled out and then it rolled onto its side, scratching its belly with one hind leg. "See," Garrett breathed. "Fluffy murder tank, but cuddly." Virex took several slow steps back, hand drifting to the stun baton on his hip. "You are standing 50 meters from a terrestrial death engine and you are cooing at it." "Well, yeah, it's not like she's gonna." The bear's head snapped up. Its nostrils flared. It stared across the river at them. Garrett lowered the binoculars. "Oh," he said. The bear stood. "Run," Garrett said. They bolted through the underbrush, branches tearing at their clothes. Behind them, the bear's roar shattered the forest silence. Virex's scanner beeped wildly with proximity alerts, warning of rapidly approaching mass. "Why is it chasing us?" Virex yelled. "Maybe it doesn't like being called cute." They crashed through a gully and scrambled up the opposite slope. Garrett grabbed a low, hanging branch and swung himself up, then reached down to haul Virex after him. The bear crashed through the trees below, jaws snapping. Garrett dragged Virex up by the arm just as the bear's claws slashed at the dirt inches below their boots. "Keep going," Garrett shouted. They ran. 10 minutes and a kilometer later, they stumbled into a rocky plateau lined with boulders and sparse pine. The bear, either disinterested or exhausted, had not followed. Garrett collapsed against a stone and wheezed. Virex crouched beside him, limbs twitching. "You call that thing cute?" "Yeah," Garrett said between gasps. "Still do. That was a female. She probably had cubs nearby. We got too close. You were smiling. I always smile when I'm nervous." "You are insane." "No, just from Montana." Virex stared at him. "Your species has cohabitated with that monster, sort of. We give them space. They give us space, usually." Virex stood and began scanning his own limbs for damage. "Your civilization constructed nuclear power and orbital satellites, yet you still live beside carnivorous megafauna." Garrett wiped sweat off his brow. "We adapt." "That is not adaptation, that is evolutionary roulette," Garrett chuckled. "You'd get along with my ex-wife." Virex frowned. "I do not understand." You're not missing much. They spent the next hour climbing down to the research outpost. Garrett's shirt was torn and there was a shallow scrape on his arm from a branch, but otherwise they were intact. Virex immediately submitted a report to his vessel, flagging the species Ursus arctos horribilis as extreme threat level. The next day, Virex reviewed Earth's wildlife database. What he found did not comfort him. There were apex predators in every biome: stealthy cats, venomous serpents, aquatic death machines with serrated teeth. Yet humans had survived them all, sometimes even domesticated their smaller cousins. He found footage of a human woman bottle feeding a wolf pup. He found a man cuddling a python. He found Garrett Ames on a viral video scratching a lion's chin behind a fence. Is this common? Virex asked that evening as they reviewed data logs inside the base. Garrett shrugged. Well, not everyone's dumb enough to try, but yeah, we've always had this thing about dangerous animals. Some people avoid them, some people try to make friends, some get eaten. And that is acceptable to you? No, but it's part of the deal. You live on Earth, you learn to be careful or quick. Virex tapped his tablet. Your species is both suicidal and astonishing. You forgot stubborn. He didn't. Not after what happened 3 days later. They were cataloging pollen samples when Garrett slipped on wet moss and fell from a ledge, landing hard on a jagged rock shelf below. Virex scrambled down and found him pale, lips tight with pain. I think it's my leg, Garrett murmured, trying not to move. Virex scanned him. Fracture suspected. I must transport you to the medical unit. Garrett nodded. Yeah. That'd be good. It took Virex nearly an hour to jury-rig a splint and drag Garrett back to the rover. By the time they reached the outpost, Garrett's face was white and slick with sweat. The human doctors confirmed a broken femur. You will be incapacitated for weeks, Virex said later, watching Garrett wince as he was moved to a cot. Yeah, Garrett replied. Doc says 6 to 8 weeks minimum. And yet you walk beside predators that could kill you in seconds. Garrett gave a tired smile. It's a dangerous planet. But it's home. That night, Virex sat alone outside the outpost, staring at the stars. He replayed the footage from the bear encounter. He watched Garrett's face light up with wonder as he whispered, "She's adorable." He didn't understand it, but he was beginning to respect it. The outpost's med bay smelled faintly of antiseptic and pine sap. The latter wasn't intentional, just the cost of operating a field station in the middle of temperate wilderness. Wind carried everything through those half-sealed vents. Dust, pollen, sometimes small insects that had to be vacuumed out of the overhead lights. Virex sat against the wall, arms folded, watching the human's leg rest inside a traction brace. Garrett was dozing, jaw slack, with one arm draped over his forehead. The local medic, a pale-skinned woman with cropped silver hair and a wrist full of diagnostic bands, adjusted the Roman 4 with practiced calm. He's stable, she said without looking up. Compound fracture, clean break. He's lucky it didn't sever anything critical. Virex narrowed his eyes. It did not look clean. Clean in the sense that it'll heal with proper alignment. The bone didn't splinter. We got to it fast enough. He fell from height. Shouldn't that result in more extensive trauma? The medic glanced at him. You people really don't understand humans, do you? I am trying. Good. She pressed her thumb to a screen and logged something. Then here's your next lesson. Human bones are built to take punishment, not indefinitely, but we evolved running barefoot over rough terrain. Our joints, our spines, even our pain thresholds, they're all designed by survival pressure. Virex considered that. So your species is not just resilient by chance, it is by design. Exactly. Garrett stirred and blinked at the ceiling. His voice came in a croak. Did someone just compliment my skeleton? The medic snorted. You're on mild painkillers, don't get too proud. Garrett tried to sit up and winced. I feel like my hip lost a bet. You'll feel worse if you don't stop moving. Stay horizontal. Virex stepped closer, antennae twitching. Has your mobility returned? Not today, buddy. Feels like someone filled my thigh with hot gravel, but I can wiggle my toes now, so I guess that's progress. You are aware that your decision to pursue terrestrial wildlife led to this outcome. Garrett gave a half shrug. I didn't plan on falling off a ledge. That was a bonus. You treat injury as if it were an inconvenience, not a warning. I treat it like what it is, something you deal with. You patch it, learn from it, and try not to repeat it. The medic folded her arms. He's being modest. We had a guy last year who broke his ankle in 3 places and still tried to hike back to base on it. Humans will do all kinds of things with busted limbs. Some of it's adrenaline, some of it's pride. Virex looked between them. Why not simply wait for assistance? Sometimes there is no assistance, Garrett said. You're deep in the woods, communications down, weather turns. You move or you freeze. That's how it works out here. The medic straightened a cabinet door that had been hanging crooked. You've seen the surface of our planet, Commander, but you haven't really seen Earth yet. Virex tilted his head. Meaning this place doesn't care if you're intelligent. It's not trying to kill you, but it won't stop you from dying either. That's the difference. Garrett yawned. That's why we invent things. Tools, shelters, medicine. Every generation tries to outpace the last one's disasters. You adapt faster than your environment can challenge you, sometimes, Garrett replied. Sometimes the environment wins, but not for long. Virex studied the brace. And how long is your recovery expected to last? 6 weeks, the medic answered, assuming no complications. I will assist with his duties in the interim. Garrett raised an eyebrow. You sure? You hate mud. I dislike inefficiency, and you are currently immobile, the medic chuckled. That's the nicest way I've ever heard someone say you're useless. Garrett grinned. Virex has a way with encouragement. Later that afternoon, while Garrett rested, Virex joined 3 of his fellow delegates in the data lab. The room, lined with glowing panels and humming consoles, overlooked a mossy clearing. Beyond it, the forest swayed lazily in the breeze. Commander, said Yeltrin, a tall, many-eyed analyst with a voice like boiling water. We reviewed your incident report. The predator you encountered, its mass and velocity, are inconsistent with its level of social exposure. Why do humans permit such proximity? They do not always control it, Virex replied, but they often tolerate it. Sometimes even seek it out. You mean they deliberately approach hostile fauna? Yes. A second delegate, narrow and translucent, clicked its mandibles. That is irrational, I agree, yet they continue. Do they not suffer casualties? They do. But they do not retreat. Yeltrin tapped a claw against the table. Then their survival must be attributed to technological superiority. Virex shook his head. Not entirely. Many of their encounters with danger occur without advanced gear. They rely on improvisation, judgment. Sometimes nothing more than persistence. The third delegate, a squat being with luminescent skin, leaned forward. You sound impressed. I am unsettled, Virex admitted, but yes, also impressed. That evening, Virex returned to the med bay. Garrett was awake, sipping lukewarm broth through a straw and watching a small screen loop footage of a thunderstorm rolling over the Amazon basin. Those clouds look like they're thinking about something terrible, he muttered. Virex sat beside the cot. I have questions. Shoot. Your species has constructed artificial environments in orbit. You have mastered propulsion, chemistry, even minor genetic manipulation. Why continue exposing yourselves to unregulated wilderness? Garrett blinked at him. Because we didn't come from the sky. We came from down here. I do not understand. Look, it's not just about survival, it's about remembering. Every tool we built, every wall we raised, it all started because we had to deal with the cold or the hunger or the fact that a saber-toothed cat wanted to eat our faces. That is not an answer. It is. You just don't like it, Virex frowned. You could terraform other worlds. Remove the danger. Live in controlled harmony. We could. But if we did that, we'd forget what made us human. Virex was silent for a long time. Eventually, Garrett broke the quiet. You ever see a lightning storm up close? I have observed electrical discharges from orbit. No, I mean really see one. from under a canvas roof with the air so thick you can taste it, when every bolt lights up the sky like it's trying to rewrite the world. I have not, you should. It's terrifying and beautiful, like most things down here. The lights dimmed automatically as the base entered night cycle. Outside, something chirped in the undergrowth. Virex stood. I will return tomorrow. Bring cards, I'm already bored. Virex paused at the door. What is go fish, you'll see. He left the room, his thoughts unsettled, not by the injury, not even by the bear, but by the human lying in bed, half broken and still cracking jokes who could describe danger with nostalgia and pain with fondness. Virex had studied hundreds of species. Some were brilliant, some were brutal, but none until now had ever treated adversity as a companion. He made a note to study this further, not from textbooks, but from observation, direct experience, as the humans would say. It had been 11 days since Garrett's fall. The outpost's main corridor still creaked in the early morning chill, and the piney scent drifting through the vents had shifted subtly, less sap, more damp bark. Outside, rain whispered across the canopy, steady and unhurried. Virex stood in the supply room, arms full of labeled packs, reviewing the contents of each with methodical patience. He had taken over Garrett's field tasks, just as promised, though the human's notes were an exercise in disorder. Some pages were scrawled margins deep with observations, others merely had the word looked weird next to a GPS coordinate. The internal door hissed open, and the medic stepped in, arms crossed. She regarded him with the expression humans used when deciding whether to offer sympathy or sarcasm. He's awake, again, and trying to convince the intern to sneak him a grilled cheese sandwich. Virex didn't look up. He is not permitted solids until bone regeneration stabilizes. Try telling him that. I have, 4 times. She leaned against the wall. He says he's bored, he is injured. He doesn't consider that a valid reason for boredom. Virex closed the flap on the last pack. Then he may observe the cataloging process. You're going to let him work. He will sit. He will not lift. He will not move unassisted. She raised an eyebrow. You're serious? Yes. Well, she sighed, if anyone can babysit him without giving in to the whining, it's probably you. By midday, Garrett had been wheeled into the lab, elevated leg balanced in a mobile brace, a thin blanket draped over his lap. He had insisted on wearing his own jacket, despite the temperature-controlled environment. Virex handed him a datapad and a stylus. You will transcribe field notes from the past 4 days. Do not alter the formatting. Formatting, Garrett squinted at the screen. You mean this wall of tiny boxes? Yes. Looks like tax documents had a baby with a crossword puzzle. You will manage. Garrett tapped his stylus against his chin. You know, you're the only person here who hasn't tried to cheer me up. I am not here to provide emotional buffering. Yeah, I figured. He began typing. Virex returned to sorting the pollen samples Garrett had collected before the fall, using a scanner with a retractable lens. They worked in silence for a while, save for the occasional muttered complaint about the unholy font size. Eventually, Garrett asked, You ever break anything? Virex didn't look up. Exoskeletal fractures are rare in my species. But I once sustained a joint displacement during planetary descent training. Ouch. It was corrected within minutes. Still hurts like hell, doesn't it? There was discomfort, but not prolonged. Garrett adjusted the blanket. I hate how slow this is. I've been stabbed before. Got back to work in 2 days, but this, just a fall, and now I'm furniture. You were impaled, different story, don't worry, it was sterile. That does not make it less concerning. Fair. Virex paused to log a specimen reading. Your tolerance for injury is inconsistent. Pain's not always the same thing as damage, and damage doesn't always mean stop. Depends where you are, who's with you, and how badly you want to stand up again. Virex returned to scanning. That approach lacks objectivity. It's not an approach. It's instinct. The door slid open and Yeltrin entered, carrying a sealed container. They glanced at Garrett, then at the brace, still broken, Garrett waved, still gloriously non-functional. Yeltrin set the container down. We completed analysis of the atmospheric spores. Some are toxic when inhaled in high concentrations. Garrett frowned. Which ones? We are compiling a list. Virex examined the container. Cross-reference with the regions we visited last week. Alert the botany team. Yeltrin nodded and left without further comment. Garrett tapped the stylus against the table. They always like that. Yeltrin communicates with efficiency. They make you look chatty. I will ignore that. Garrett returned to his screen. You think I'll be able to walk by the time we leave? You will. If you continue the prescribed therapy. Not really worried for me. Virex turned slightly. Then for whom? For you. Virex blinked. Explain. You've been doing double duty since I went down and you haven't even complained. I mean, I know you don't really do complaining the way we do, but still. I was assigned to your team. Your incapacitation affected our output. That's not the part I'm talking about. Virex stood silent for a moment. You believe I will miss your assistance. I think you'll miss having someone around who doesn't do everything by the book. Virex considered this. Your methods lack structure. Yeah. But they usually get results. That remains under review. Garrett laughed, then winced and shifted in his chair. I miss moving. Like just walking around. You ever get that? Like your body's mad at you for not using it? I require regular muscular tension to prevent atrophy. Your species calls it stretching. Close enough. They worked for another hour before the medic arrived again, checked Garrett's vitals, and made him drink a chalky beverage from a plastic cup. Bone stimulant, she said. Tastes like drywall, works like magic. Garrett grimaced. I'd rather be stabbed again. No stabbing, she said. You're not allowed to make your injury worse just to get better at a different rate. When she left, Garrett leaned back. You ever think about how weird it is that we heal? Like our bodies just rebuild themselves, not always perfectly. But still, it is a common biological function. Yeah, but think about it, we break and then we aren't broken anymore. That's wild. Virex folded his hands. You find hope in the aftermath of damage. Isn't that the whole point? Not just surviving the hit, but figuring out how to make peace with the scar. Virex didn't respond. Garrett looked at him. You okay? I am functioning. No, I mean, you seem quieter today. Virex looked at the wall display where the rainfall outside played in muted gray. I have been considering your species' relationship with your environment. Still trying to figure out why we haven't annihilated ourselves yet. I believe I understand that. What I do not understand is why you return, again and again, even knowing the risks. Garrett glanced down at his leg. Because there's always something left to see, something worth the risk. And if the risk outweighs the value, then we climb slower or we build a better rope. Virex turned back to the samples. You are unsolvable. That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me all week. By late evening, the rain had stopped, and the forest outside glistened under the retreating mist. Virex helped Garrett back to the med bay, pushing the chair slowly to avoid jostling the brace. They passed a technician hauling soil cores, a drone humming overhead, and someone in the mess hall burning something that smelled suspiciously like synthetic eggs. Inside the med bay, Garrett maneuvered onto the cot with practiced difficulty. Virex adjusted the blanket without being asked. You'll be back on your feet soon, he said. Garrett nodded. And when I am, you're taking me to see the canyon north of the ridge. They say you can see 4 weather systems from there at once. Virex hesitated. I will consider it. Garrett offered a tired grin. You can even bring 3 scanners. I will bring 5. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the soft beeping of the monitor. I'm glad you didn't walk away, Garrett said. After the bear. I was not permitted to abandon an assigned teammate. That's not what I meant, I know. Outside, the first stars emerged above the treetops, pale and flickering. The forest slept. The threat had passed. The wound would close and the mission continued.